Justin Hawkins rides again. Oh, good day to you. It is I, Justin Hawkins from the darkness. This is Justin Hawkins Rides Again. Today, I urge you to like and subscribe because this is somewhat of a music business segment. I'm going to talk about Taylor Swift, Swiftie, as some people call her, affectionately. She, I think she likes the darkness. That's what I've heard. She insisted. She insisted on dancing to a darkness song on an Apple Music advertisement, and it was a very welcome moment for us. It revitalised the catalogue and put some money in our pockets. But I've always appreciated her. She always says nice things about us, so I'm going to be especially generous today, not least because of that, but I also I admire what she's done recently with re-recording all of her stuff. As you may know, The Darkness has an album out. It came out this week as I'm recording it. The midweek chart position was looking really good. It was on the first day, which we weren't supposed to know or even say, it was a number 9 in the UK charts. Then the next day, because somebody else overtook us, it was number 10, but it was still like, oh, wow, a top 10 album for a middle-aged man band. It was a hell of an achievement. But it's just been knocked out of the top 10 by Taylor Swift, who has decided to re-record all of her music. She was in a deal that she didn't like much because her old manager or her label owned all of the master recordings. It's not the first time somebody's done that. In fact, I can think of 2 other examples recently. One of them was Def Leppard. They re-recorded all their stuff from the 80s. And I think that's because in most recording contracts, after a certain amount of time, you have a right to re-record things. And you only really exercise that right if you never have a chance to retain the ownership of the masters. So I think they might have done Hysteria or one of those really, really big albums. You do it because when say, for example, Apple Music or McDonald's, the Coca-Cola drinks company or somebody like that wants to use your song, there's 2 amounts of money that they pay out. The first one is to the writers. So, for example, let's say Taylor Swift writes a song and it goes, Justin Hawkins rides again. And then that's Justin Hawkins Rides Again by Taylor Swift I've just done there. It's huge. So say she recorded that sting there. She puts it out as an album, but she never owns the master recording. A lot of time you can sell the license to exploit the master recording. That's what she's probably going to do nowadays. So a record company would have the right to manufacture it. They'd have the right to promote it. They would have a team of people synchronizing it and trying to exploit it as often as possible. But ultimately, the recording would remain hers, and then she'd collect royalties on it that are collected by the label. Then the ownership reverts back to her, and she has an opportunity to sell it again to another record label later on. But evidently, on her earlier segments of her oeuvre, she wasn't allowed to do that. So she's re-recorded them all, and it's fucked us. It's fucked us right in the arse. It's fucked the darkness. It's fucked us up. It was a totemistic top 10 position we were looking at. It's not going to happen now. But I have to respect her for it. It's a good move. It's a smart thing to do. We did it actually. We did it the Christmas song. You know, the Christmas song. The Darkness is famous. The Christmas song. It's called. Because we thought, well, it gets to Christmas time. Maybe a supermarket chain, Aldi. Let's just say Aldi for argument's sake, wants to use it. We wrote the song, so our publishing company would remunerate us for that synchronization, which is when the music is synchronized to a visual and then it's broadcast. There's two lots of money. This is what I'm getting at. Sorry. So the writers of the song get an amount of money, but also the owner of the master recording gets an amount of money. So in our case, Atlantic Records, who paid for us to record it in Abbey Road with Bob Ezrin, of course they should be compensated for that. But we thought, well, we'll quickly re-record it, and then they might use the re-recording. We can probably negotiate a fee that's slightly lower than what Atlantic might insist on, and then we'd make some money, But nobody's interested in the new version of a Darkness recording. I think it's different for rock bands because there's something especial about the original performances that you can't recapture. You certainly can't. It's certainly very, very difficult to make something that sounds like a Bob Ezrin production recorded at Abbey Road when you're doing it in my bedroom and my vocal booth is a duvet over my head and a microphone. You just can't do it. So, but apparently Taylor Swift can do it. She has the resources. I think her songs rely on, I'm assuming, her songs rely on cutting edge pop production methods, and if you have her stature in the music trade, you just go to another studio and you do it again. Apparently it's very consistent and just like the original recordings, and her fans just listen to the new ones because they want her to be rich, and they don't want the people that own her old recordings and locked her into that crazy deal to be rich. But that's the music trade. That's what happens. Musicians are the only people that don't make any money at the moment, unless you're Taylor Swift and you can re-record your entire back catalogue. Well done, Taylor. When you go onto Spotify or you go onto Apple Music or YouTube Music or whatever it is, and say you want to listen to something from the 80s, like you might want to listen to Phil Collins, and then you go to, just as an example, you go to listen to No Jacket Required, and it says No Jacket Required in brackets remaster, and sometimes it will say something like, I'm pulling a year out of my arse here, but 2011 remaster. It looks like you're listening to something where the master tapes have been optimized, sonically for whatever the prevailing method of listening would be. So like most people listen to music on their phones. Stuff that was mastered in the 80s is probably going to be more suitable for vinyl or CDs. So they've changed it so it sounds better on phones and is competitive with stuff that's released today. But also, as it's a remaster, I wonder if it's a re-release as such, and I wonder if it's a way of. I wonder if that's something similar. Because when Phil Collins did it, he changed the artwork as well, so it's a slightly different album. It's the iconic Phil Collins. I don't know why I'm talking about Phil Collins. The iconic Phil Collins album covers are always his face, but seriously. No Jacket Required, and then they changed the iconic image of his face as a younger man to his current face, which looks a bit like my dad, funnily enough. More on dad rock later, in a later episode of Justin Hawkins Rides Again, and an earlier episode, just dad rock for life. Remember, Justin Hawkins. No, with the Phil Collins one, I think that's just a sonic optimization, but as it's a remaster, perhaps, how does it work? Somebody in the comments, please tell me how it works. If you remaster something, as Led Zeppelin have done, 3 or 4 times, Queen have done it, it usually coincides with when they're changing labels. And so they bring the entire catalogue, which presumably they license to the earlier label, they remaster it, and then that's the version that everybody wants to hear because it's optimized for the current listening method du jour. So then the money that's collected isn't the old pre-remastering, it's the new mastering. And if you've remastered it and re-released it, then does that mean that it's collected by the new label? I think it does. There's a lot of trickery that happens behind the scenes. One thing about this Taylor Swift maneuver is that it's not a new thing. She's not the first person to do it. She won't be the last. But she seems to be the one who's done it most publicly, and probably the first one that's done it in the pop sphere. And it's made all of her enthusiasts acutely aware that there's a lot of artists in the pop and probably country, rock, in the music trade who are just being used by the blokes in suits. It's of Taylor's oldest time, isn't it? Remember Elvis's manager ripped him off? Queen's old manager ripped him off? Everybody has that story. It's just that Taylor's hitting back. What? I'm just going to do a bit of bass. No? Won't do that? No. Whenever you see a biopic of any artist, particularly ones from the 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s, less so the 90s, much less so the noughties, it's always a story of an artist that struggles, wins, but has a manager or a record company or something in the infrastructure means that they don't make as much money as they should, and other people get rich while they don't. And then they change things and they either win or they lose. That's what always happens. It's the music trade is very cutthroat. It's notorious for that. And Taylor Swift is hitting back, becoming is it autonomous? Is that the word? She's claiming autonomy and control of her catalogue, and she's rendering those first how many albums? 8 albums? 6. First 6 albums, I think it is. The master recordings on the original master recordings will be rendered worthless because her entire fan base knows that they have to listen to the new one if they want to support her as an artist. It's brilliant. It's going to piss a lot of people off. It should have pissed me off because of what it did to the Darkness's chart position, but I'm proud of her. Well done, Taylor. The trouble is, it's the Hydra, because once you cut one head off, another one grows. It used to be record labels, it used to be managers, then it was Spotify. I don't know who's next, but somebody will try and fuck us. And we've got to stick together and support Taylor Swift and the Darkness, because frankly, it's tough out there. She's making it tougher for us, but hats off to her. It's the right thing to do. But why this week, Taylor? Why this week? Any other week? By the way, I've got a little refrain you might want to use in one of your new songs, Taylor. Justin Hawkins writes again. That's C minor with what's that? 6. C minor 6. Try it. You might like it. Justin Hawkins writes again. Like, subscribe. Cheers. I think it's fair to say that even after all these years, these trousers still fit. Watch. Oh, shit. Did that... I think it'll be alright. Justin Hawkins writes again. It's a shame the trousers have gone, isn't it? But oh fuck! I thought that was gonna. So be alright though, isn't it? You can't see the lining for it, can you?